Now today's video for you is part 4 of how to paint an Asian otter in watercolour. Now in this part we'll finish painting those dark fur layers and then I'll show you how to apply those white highlights. Now this is the 4th part of a 5-part video tutorial here on YouTube just for you to watch. Now this is one of my older lessons from my Patreon channel, so give it a go and let me show you how to paint realistic animals in watercolour. Let's get the brushes wet, shall we? And let's make a start. So burnt umber, alizarin crimson and lamp black. And we're going to start building up some of the details around here now. Tiny marks. I've got a lot of paint on the brush. I'm trying to take some paint off. I don't want too much because I don't want it too blobby on there. And again, looking at the direction that these little lines go in. So as I said earlier on, we're going to be going over the top of a lot of this with watercolour white, which will really bring it to life and make it pop out, which is what we want it to do. Especially around this area as well, because it's quite light around the area. So I don't want to go too close to there really. I'm going to soften this down a little bit with some clean water. Getting a little bit too dark down there, I noticed. Don't want it too dark, be careful. Okay, right, continue. So these tend to go that direction. This is one direction, we've heard of them, haven't we? These tend to go and curl around, pointing downwards now. Keep looking at the shape and the angle that they go. I know I keep stressing that, but it's so important just to kind of get the feel of the shape. All adds to the shape and the overall three-dimensional effect at the end of the painting. So keep working on that. And we're going to come up to here. Again, this is a watered down version of our thick kind of colour, which is this one here for the ear. So I'm working on the details as I go, looking at the tiny marks I've got to make. Again, as I said before, the white will really kind of make it pop out when we go in, so I'm just going to pop a few more in. This is dried now, just into this area, just a few, just to blend it together a little bit more there. Okay, that'll do. I'm going to go into that little browny colour we used for the chest. Just pop a few more of those in as well. Only because I want to kind of vary the tone a little bit around this area. Because again, looking at the photo, it gets a little bit more brown in the colour coming around here now, starting to. Then this should blend in gradually to this area here. Just a gradual blend from one transition to the other. How's that looking? Coming together a bit more now? Starting to, isn't it? Starting to look a bit more 3D-ish. So you can see it's quite time consuming doing the detail work like this, especially when it's fur. But it's worth it. Just take your time, as I said. You don't have to do it overnight. You don't have to do it in one day. You do it over 4 weeks, a month, a year, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. You know, it's the kind of thing that you can keep coming backward and forward to. And as I said, because it's fur, which people have been asking about, it's good as a means of reference as well. When you're doing a dog portrait, something like that, you can see the way I've done the fur on this otter is the same way I would do fur on a cat or a dog. So I'm trying to add a little bit of burnt umber into the same mix, just get a bit more of a brown flavour to it. So this is that dark colour again. Okay, so all the same colour, the dark colour which we've been using all along for the head. And I've added a little bit of burnt umber into it, just to kind of change the flavour a little bit as I go along. So it's well worth doing that every now and then. We could change it back at some point if need be, but around here it's actually quite, on the photograph again, if you have a look at that, it's quite light, like a light pale browny kind of ochre colour around here anyway. So you don't want to go too dark on the detail around there. You need detail in there, otherwise it'll look very flat, but you want to go a little bit browner on the detail. And again, I'm trying to do small marks around there as well. Keep it small. I think what I'll do, I'll just lightly dampen down that face a minute. Go back to the size 5. I'm going to lightly dampen this. Make sure there's not too much water on there, Paul. Just very lightly go over the top. I don't want to run it away. I want it to stay put, but just to soften, as I said before. Just what you've just done. That's all I needed to do. A bit more down here. And there we go. See, that's looking okay now, just about anyway. And then we'll start popping in these details a little bit more now. Start to form the shape of the mouth. I'm looking at the photograph as I'm going here, just to get the shape, which is around there. It's darker underneath, remember, as we go through. And we've got a few darker lines coming around there. And we need to show the curve from the inside out. So what I'm going to do is bring a few lines from the in out, shake it all about. And then we'll soften that down, sorry about that. We'll soften that down, just kind of get that curve going in there. That's what I want to achieve. So again, a little bit more in there, just to show a bit of a curve going on. Okay, into the damp paper, and just tickle it out with a clean damp brush. So you get that feel of shape, which is what I want there. Okay, so back into the usual mix, which is the dark mix with a little bit of burnt umber in there. And we're going to start getting some more details around here now. The thing with anything like this, there's a lot of detail work to do, but that's the beauty of it, and that's what I enjoy doing. That's why you guys are here, to learn the way I paint. And hopefully, I mean, you don't have to go as to the detail I go to, but it could give you some idea on how I do this. It's going into the darker colour, which is the usual kind of head colour, just so I can get some darker lines in here now. Trying to separate these marks that we've got, because we've already got that horizontal line there. I need to kind of make that disappear now by putting the darker lines over the top. Not covering it completely though, I don't want to do that. Oops, a bit too much there, Paul. Soften it with your finger before it dries. Little tip and trick. And the same, working your way around. Bear with me a minute, let's get some more paint on my brush. See, once you get down to this area down here, I'm looking at where this chin comes down to this, probably about around here, which is where I've got this line. So it kind of finishes around here. It's kind of plotting things out again. This is where the dark is. So I need to kind of create a feeling of roundness for all this area now. So let's get this other layer in first. Look at the direction these are going. This kind of curl that way now. They seem to be going that way. Looking back and forward. Back into the slightly browny version, which is this bit. Build it and shape it as we go. We need this to be darker in here as well to show that there's a dark area behind there, but not all the way along. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So where this area comes up here, this is that dark colour, the head colour again. And with the photo, we've got quite a few more details going around here. As it gets a bit lighter as it comes along the jawline, but we need to show this curve in here, so we need to darken that area. Just thinking about that little crease, I think it needs to be a bit darker in there actually as well. So I'm going to pull a few lines out here first. Okay, just a few. Then go into the dark colour again, the head colour, and start popping some of that colour in there. Don't completely paint a black line all the way along. Keep it broken by painting bits of it. It's not black anyway, it's browny, black, brown, red, isn't it? So all in all. And just bring a few around just to show that shape. Imagine that curl. Imagine like a tube sort of thing. That's what this sort of is. With a few straighter lines over the top. That's what you've more or less got there. And the same again around here. And probably, but I've got quite a dry brush now. So I'm going to make use of that. About there. So this is going to be underneath the old chinny chin chin, and bring that around. We'll soften this down in a bit as well, just so we can just make it a little bit easier on the eye, so it's not so sharp. Okay, I think that's about there. That's not far off. Because obviously when we go underneath here, it's going to be really dark. It's nearly black under there. Nearly. And a few more around here, I think, just to darken that area. I think I've got a few up here as well, because it looks a little bit two shapes, if you know what I mean. I'll need to kind of get that roundness on there, really. So just kind of bring that line up a little bit. And all I'm doing basically is that the darker the areas I said earlier on that you've got, the more lines you put closer together. When you come further around the curve, you kind of space the lines apart a bit further, okay? And fewer lines. So, again, just dabbing the brush on the kitchen roll first, so there's not too much on the brush. We need enough, otherwise it won't work. Okay, and that's about coming together there now, slowly. I wiped across there, but I want to finish it off in the direction that the fur goes. And that's that. Obviously the white whiskers we'll put in, that'll be the last thing we'll probably do, or thereabouts. So really all you need for this area is lamp black, burnt umber and alizarin crimson with just a touch of yellow ochre, okay? And that's all you need for this. So if you remember that, you'll be doing okay. Honest. So we'll start working on some more of the details around here now. I'm just going to get this, while this is all drying off up there, because it's still wet at the moment, I'm going to start kind of building up the detail on the right hand side as we look at it. Now with the chest, it's imperative that you try and make sure that you get the direction of the brush strokes about right. Right, okay, so we know underneath the chin here it's very dark, so this is just the initial area. Remember, the darker the areas, the more layers you'll need, okay? Alright, so that's that. We've got the curl going on right there, so that's going to come round to about here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the dark colour now, and I'm going to work underneath the chin. So this is the head colour again, that blacky, browny, reddy colour. And we're going to start popping some of these darker marks in. Keep them fairly close together, but don't fill it in, okay? So you want to be able to show some of the details in between, because this will cover everything up if you're not careful. So again, barely touching that paper. Okay, barely touching the paper. And just very lightly put these in. We need to show this dark underneath the chin. Back to the size 5, tap it on the kitchen roll a couple of times, and then slowly soften this down. I just dabbed it again there because it was a little bit too overpowering, too much water on there. I don't want to wash it all away. Bit on there where I worked earlier, soften it back. Right, so now I can see the effect starting to come together on there now. You see why you need the shadow underneath the chin. It's not done yet, but it will be. Because we've got a shadow down here, when you look at the photo, it shows that the way that this curls around the area as well. And we've got a shadow, a very faint one, but around this area here as well. So, we'll come back to that again in a bit once it's dry. Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson. So what I do, I show you my technique on how to paint wildlife in watercolour. We go through a variety of subjects from dogs, cats, insects and even botanical subjects as well. And I'll guide you through this right from the beginning all the way through to the end for those final brushstrokes. You'll also find that with most of my videos you also get the outline drawing and that reference photograph as well. Every month we produce a PDF version, so a typed out version with photographs of that monthly main video. you'll get the PDFs for the months that you are a member. Now, this is a very in-depth document with lots and lots of pages of information and instruction, as well as obviously the photographs as well. Now, another benefit is that you get access as well to my private Facebook group. Now, the good thing about my videos is that they'll be here 24/7. So you can watch them 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line. It doesn't really matter. They'll always be there. You can stop, you can play, you can rewind, you can pause as many times as you want to do so. So that will give us some ideas on what you'll gain from being a member on my Patreon channel. So I'm trying to work on, there's a bit curves around here a little bit. If you look at the photograph, you see kind of like the direction of the fur. So the hairs go in a curve like that. In sort of a line, because this is like a V around here. When you look at the photograph, you can see it kind of forms the shape of a V, which comes down to there. So I'm looking, this tends to curl around here, so this goes sideways around there. Size 5 Spotter Series brush. And we're going to soften this down, again not too much, don't rub it in too much, because if you start scrubbing it, you'll blend it together far too much and then you'll have to redo the detail. And then you probably find it a bit too dark as well then. Even though we're going to be using white over the top of a lot of this, which is going to look smart, you don't want to kind of wash it all away. Okay, this is drying quite nicely now, so back to the double zero brush and back to the detail. Hey, right, okay. Right, as I mentioned, while this is drying, which is nearly dry now, I want to start working on some of the details around here. So this is that same dark colour we've already had mixed. And even though I use black, as you know, I tend to use lamp black a lot, but I tend to mix it with other colours, because it can be very flat on its own. Right, that'll do for that section. Now what I want to do is start looking at the way that these sections go down here. It tends to kind of curl down and then hook back up again. So curl down, hook back up again. It's like an elongated S, isn't it? See that? So when you look at the photograph, you see that on the photograph. That's how it kind of looks. So comes down and pulls back up again. Alright, so a little bit, and then it starts to taper out a little bit more as it comes down then. So that's what you've got to look at, okay? So let's get those in now. And looking at around here, it's a little bit darker, and it's on the right side of my hand as well now. I can actually pull these little areas out, kind of flick them out as we go along. You guys who are right hand, about to turn your board around for this bit. So there. You had the benefit on that side of the paper, okay? And just flick a few out as you come down. I'll carry on with the rest of those in a bit. And I'm going to try and get these details in. We need a bit more of a darker mark around it. When you look at the photograph again, you see it's fairly dark there around this area. So just make that mark in there now. Okay. Just so we can see that definition between the light and the dark in there. Just soften that down with my finger. And then this little S. I can't do it anymore. There's a little S. You can do it, okay, while you're watching this. You do it. Go on, I'm listening. No, come on, you can whistle better than that. That's better, thank you. So, and then the outer part of this tends to go downhill like this, okay? So we're looking at that bit there. So these are fairly short, these sections now. Remember to pull a few out, just to kind of break up the edge. So I'll complete that area down there now. And you can put as much detail into this as you want to. You don't have to go for the amount of detail I put into these. So I'm putting a bit darker in now. This is a head colour, just to kind of define that little area down there. And this down here is quite dark as well, using the head colour. As you can see, it's slowly coming together. So I'm going to come in with, this is a mixture of burnt umber and lamp black. Just a very thin mixture to begin with. I don't want to go too dark to begin with. As I said before, the best way you can do this is to come in lighter than you think you'll need, okay? Before you go in darker, because you can always go darker, but you can't. It's very difficult to kind of go back to light again afterwards. So I'm looking at the direction again this all goes, and I'm trying to make this a little bit darker underneath. So when we come along with the white whiskers, they'll stand out a bit more, yeah? We need the dark for the light to show. I think I want to add a little bit more kind of ochre colour into here as well. Looking at the photograph, it's a bit more ochre, if that's the right word. So again, just working on as we go along around the curvatures here. This kind of curves in, then comes out, then curves in, down this end. So I've got this zoomed out quite some way on the camera at the moment because I wanted you to see the full picture, so you can see where it's light and where it's darker. And you can see where I'm putting these darker layers in there. So this again is the browny black. Right, so what we're going to do is go for yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. Okay, which is that one there. Got that? Yes, Paul. Okay, just a few, just to kind of warm it up a little bit. You don't want it too thick, so you want it fairly watery on this colour, otherwise it's going to be it will stand out far too much. So quite watery. And there's a few, probably a few around here as well. Just kind of add a variation to the colours in there a little bit, so it's not all samey all the way through. Okay, so the next stage we're going to work on the white, alright?
Also, don't forget to click on that subscribe button down below, and don't forget that bell icon as well, just so you'll never miss one of my YouTube videos.
I'm going to mix probably half of this into like a creamy, single cream consistency. That's all I want, not all of it. I'm going to leave one. I'll leave that bit to one side there, because I need some thicker paint. We'll start off around the top of the eye. Don't cover everything up, just do bits and bobs, okay? Don't cover every single area up because you've got all that lovely detail underneath and you don't want to end up kind of covering it all. So this is single cream, so it's not too bright white, if you know what I mean, at the moment. Which I don't need it to be because it's not a white colour really. It's a bit whiter there. So if it needs to be whiter, just add less water, okay? Or where I left it quite thick on there, if you remember, I had an unmixed part. You can drag a bit more of that down into the water just to thicken the white in the water a bit more, so you get quite white like that there if you wanted it. But you don't want too much of it, as I said, otherwise it'll end up being a very grey looking otter. But at the moment we don't want it that way, we just want a suggestion of white, just a hint of white here and there. Just highlights, that's all it is. Just to show where things go. So things like on the top of the head here, there's one little kind of hair coming up, which is like an eyebrow hair, eyelash, which comes up over the top there. So we could put that in later on. So when we go in with the whiskers, we'll do all that then. Okay. And I think I'll just go to the back of the head a minute before we come too far down here, and just pop a few bits and bobs in here. Okay, you've got to vary the strokes on these. Don't have them all the same direction. Just vary them slightly. I would say you don't want a big cross, you want kind of elongated crosses. So just barely overlapping a little bit here and there. Otherwise it's going to look far too much kind of samey all the time, which you don't want it to do really, do we? Want it to kind of look varied. It's very white there, so you can dampen it down with your finger. Just one swipe with your finger. You can see we're getting a bit of a sheen on here now, which is what we're aiming for. And I'm going to concentrate a bit more around this area now. When you look at the photo, you'll find that on this top of the head here, where it's darker on the right on the far top there, isn't it? There's a kind of a light area coming down this side, fairly light, not white, but light. Down the side here. So, the thing with the white as well, because you don't need to kind of put too much on, it doesn't take too long. That's why it's a fairly kind of swift application really. It doesn't take too long, because if you take too long on it you end up with a white otter or a white dog or cat or whatever. I'm just going to get a slightly thicker mix. I'm going to drag a bit of that unmixed stuff into it in a minute, because what I want to do is put a couple of strands or so, 2 or 3 strands just going over to towards the eye, just kind of break up that kind of eye line, if you know what I mean. As I mentioned, all the whiskers or the fine hairs coming out the side of the otter we can add on later. So direction changes around here. Don't cover all the darks up, remember to leave some darks there, otherwise you lose all the depth and the contrast which you need. Okay, I'm going to work again on this side now. I've got a slightly thicker white now on there. I just want to... What you want to do with this one, turn your board round, if you're right-handed or left-handed, whichever way, so you end up dragging the lines out into the ear, so you've got a tapered line. I'm kind of over-exaggerating it there a little bit. But I think you got the idea with that. So drag the line out into the ear, so you've got a tapered line. I can't do that when I'm trying to do the video for you, so I'll start from the inside the ear instead. But try and finish your line off the ear, so pull the line off. Okay. You can see the difference when the white has been mixed much with water. This is single cream and this is double cream. So there's very little water added to this part. That's why it's obviously much more vivid, why it's whiter. You know, it's the same paint, just less water. And that's the kind of effect you'll get. All the way to the back of the ear. I'm going to start the line from the ear actually in this case, so I can pull away. Just so you don't end up with like a mark behind the ear there where you keep finishing your brush lines. So start from the back of the ear, and then you can bring some this way over those finished lines then as well. We don't want to cover it all up, remember, so be careful not to do that. And then further down the page we go. So again, you really want to try and pull away so that the lines come off the back of the otter, so it tapers away, okay? And I can't do that again because I'm left-handed and I'm going the wrong way without turning the board around. So I think for now that'll do for this lower area. So working your way around, just going to make sure I'm not going over the nose too much on there. Okay, be careful not to go onto the news. What I'm going to do is put a very light outline around that nose, which I don't normally put outlines on, as you know, but then I'm going to fade the outline out so you can't tell it's a line, if you know what I mean. So it kind of separates that away. Okay, and carry on. So back to the same kind of double cream mix now. Just about toothpaste consistency, so it's fairly thick as well. Barely touching the paper. And again, tiny marks. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to come round this direction now a little bit more. Don't cover all that dark up. Whatever you do, don't cover it up. These are quite long, these parts as well. These are much longer kind of hairs as it comes around. This is still the double cream consistency. I've not changed that since we started it. This is where you're trying to, you start to kind of get some feel of realism to a certain degree now, because it starts to come to life now, as you can see, because you're getting the shape and the form of the animal that you're painting. Right, so I'm looking at these little marks here, and these are like tiny little curls, little half curls if you wish, or quarter curls. So I'm doing those as I go along here, little tiny curls. Just kind of get them in. They start roughly around here for the whiteness, if you know what I mean. When you look at the photograph again, you see on the photograph it's quite white from that point onwards there, from like the centre of the nose hole, from around that area, coming down at an angle. Okay, you got that? Yeah, it's quite white there, and it kind of pops up to this area a little bit higher as well. That's how I'm looking at things all the time, just kind of analysing things, thinking, oh yeah, it's a bit whiter there. Yeah, it's about like that. And then you work your way down as you go along. Right, so bringing it over the mouth. This kind of breaks up this kind of jawline a little bit as well. We don't want to cover it up completely, just a few ones coming over like so, just to break up that jawline. It does work really well when you start doing that. Okay, and then we've got a bit of a kind of half smiley area around here, looking at it. Smile, you're on camera, you're being painted. So that comes around here. So we got this line about like that. Again, if you look at the photograph, you can see that on there. And as I say, you know, these are the kind of things that you're looking at. It's just kind of training your eye to spot these little marks, and you think, oh, there's a bit of a smile going on there. What's he smiling at? I'm going to leave a slight gap here, so I'm not going to completely cover this in with tiny lines. Some of these are a bit curled that way, And some tend to curl that way as well. And obviously some are straight, which is a rarity.
Join me in the last part where we'll finish off the white to complete our painting. I'll see you there.